Mr. Cenk Uygur. He's friend of Bold and a founder of the Young Turks Network. Welcome, Cenk.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey. Thanks for Skyping in. You're out there in California, so it's early there.
Yeah, no problem at all.
All right, so earlier we discussed the allegations against Brett Kavanaugh a little, but we want to get more of your thoughts on the situation, especially since it's such a fast-moving situation.
Yeah, so I said on day one of the news story that if you're going to go back to high school, the bar has to be really, really high for the accusation. We can't be going into what people said in high school or minor infractions or drinking or any of that stuff, right? But it turns out that the bar was met, unfortunately. It is a very serious allegation. And she has pretty good corroborating stories. She told her therapist back in 2012 about it when she had no idea that he would wind up being a Supreme Court nominee. So at this point, they got to hear her out. But to the Republicans' credit, they did offer that. To their discredit, they should do a background check, have the FBI do a background check, just like they did with Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. But they want to rush it because of the midterm elections. So do I think she should testify? Yes, I do, because I think her story needs to be heard before they vote. So that's where it is right now.
But Cenk, what about the argument that the FBI has already conducted 6 background checks at this point, and that the background check of an FBI check is really for whether someone's a threat to national security, and this is not a federal crime that he's alleged to have committed?
Yeah, so it's not about checking for a federal crime. This is a standard background check, and they did 6 when they didn't know this allegation. So there is perfect precedent for this. In the Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill hearings, we had the same exact situation, and the FBI came in and did another background check because of the new information that was put forward. The job of the FBI in this case is not to investigate a crime, but to give the senators as much information as they could possibly have, before voting on a lifetime appointment. And, look, if I was accused of something terrible like that, and I was sure that I didn't do it, I think I would want the investigation to clear me. So, look, there's politics here. The Republicans do not want to delay it at all because of the midterm elections. The Democrats do want to delay it, keep it real, because of the midterm elections. But I think what's important for the rest of us to consider is this guy's going on the Supreme Court potentially for the rest of his life. So let's do it right. If I was him, I'd want my name cleared. So I think the substance leans towards doing that investigation. But guys, at this point, it doesn't really matter because the Republicans aren't going to do it. I'm 100% certain that they're not going to do it under any circumstance. So I wish they would, but they're not going to. So I think Dr. Blasey should go testify and do the best she can.
So, but what would the FBI be trying to unearth? Because we have no DNA evidence. And if you're someone who believes, for example, in criminal justice reform, that we should have evidence. On Bold, we interviewed Gretchen Carlson, and one of the things she talks about in her recent book is the power of evidence, and how she said if you're building a sexual assault case or a sexual harassment case, which she did successfully, she had reams and just robust evidence where it was airtight. So how could you, you said that the allegations are serious, and I agree, but then the question is, are they credible? We don't even know where this alleged event happened. We don't know when. We don't know a date. We don't know how she came to get there or to come home. And so there are lots of really fuzzy details. So what would the FBI be able to check at this point? Because the only person who she says was in the room has said this is not what happened.
So this is very unlikely to be an airtight case under any circumstance. And we're not investigating in a court of law as a crime. But all the reasons you just mentioned are exactly why the FBI should look into it. Because you say we don't have enough information now. That's what the FBI is supposed to do in a background check, get more information. So what could they do? They're not going to get DNA, you're right. What they would do is they would go through and try to find witnesses. So they might find witnesses at that party, if they could identify that party, that go, no, she never locked herself in the bathroom. And Mike Judge was at the party, but Brett Kavanaugh wasn't at the party. That would clear him. Or if 3 witnesses said that, 5 witnesses said that, or they might find witnesses at that party. Remember, it's a party. There was a lot of people there. A lot of people might not remember, but some people might remember. Or they might find, look, I wasn't in that room and I didn't see it, but I do know she did lock herself in a bathroom and we thought that was weird. And she ran out of the house and we thought that was really weird, right? So there is other evidence that you can collect. It doesn't mean that it's going to be dispositive, but it might help to figure out if this thing actually happened or didn't happen, which is obviously very relevant in this situation.
So one thing I've been thinking about, I think a lot of people have been thinking about, is how this process went with Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas, nomination and those confirmation hearings. Something that is often overlooked in that story is how many other people shared Anita Hill's story, how many other people had similar experiences with Clarence Thomas. But of course, when we talk about it, we talk about Anita Hill. So I'm curious, I was wondering, as we were sort of talking about this, I just sort of got to thinking, wouldn't the FBI also be looking into, are there other similar cases? Are there other allegations? Are there patterns here in his behavior? Is that something that they could potentially look at as well, and would that be relevant?
Yeah, so that context is very relevant. Look, I want it to be balanced because I don't want to go back 35 years into people's lives and judge their lives. So if they found out, oh, he tried to kiss a girl, but she didn't want to kiss when they were 14, no. That's everybody's life, right? So, but if there is a pattern, and maybe that's why Kavanaugh and the Republicans don't want the FBI to investigate because they're afraid they'll find a pattern, then that's super relevant. By the way, if there's no pattern, that's also relevant. That's why I'm not prejudging the investigation. And the investigation actually is tilted in his favor because it's very hard to go back 35 years and find witnesses that could corroborate what she said. And by the way, she has a little bit more credibility on another ground, which is that in her story, Mike Judge is in the room. She knows Mike Judge is a good friend of Kavanaugh and is a Republican, is going to back Kavanaugh. But she put him in the room anyway. If you're making up the story, why would you put that guy in the room that would testify against you, even if you were right? But she did it because, presumably, certainly in her allegations, she thinks it's true.
Well, so, okay. As far as looking for other women, there have been dozens and dozens of women who knew him in high school, including women who actually dated him, that said this is completely foreign to everything we know. There's no pattern of behavior. So I even said on the show and on CNN and elsewhere with Roy Moore, I, as a conservative, I would not have voted for him, even though it helped shift the balance to Democrats. I just think morally that you have to stand up. And in this case, it just seems like the pattern is so foreign to everything we know about him and everything about how he's treated women. And so just if this isn't about, as I think we've all agreed on, at least you've agreed on, that this isn't about a criminal crime, this is about character. It seems to me that this is really, why did Dianne Feinstein sit on this for 6 weeks if it was truly exigent and truly indicative of his character? Why did she wait until it was clear that he was going to sail through those committee hearings because Spartacus failed? Why did she do this? It just seems so like you're weaponizing sexual assault, and I find that to be so troubling.
No, guys. So, look, there's a couple of things there. One is, I agree with you on the pattern, as I just said, and character and all that. So if there are no other cases, and this case can't be shown to have, good enough evidence, whatever that is, and obviously that's up to the senators, well, they'll make a decision in a certain way. But I agree with you. Look, the Harvey Weinstein, Roy Moore, I would argue Donald Trump have clear patterns. And they do it over and over and over again. So that's relevant. And if there is no pattern, I would argue that yes, then that is relevant to the Kavanaugh proceedings. But on the Feinstein, but we don't know that yet. And by the way, again, that's why they should do a background check on this to see if there is one or not. And if they find there isn't, then that would help Kavanaugh. So, okay, on the Feinstein issue, she was never going to bring it forward. She got out because now, and Dr. Blasey says because she wanted her identity kept secret because of exactly what's happening now, vicious attacks against her, had to move out of her house. Look, obviously not everybody in the right wing, but there is a virulent wing of the conservative movement now that is pro-violence and pro-threats. So they have attacked her endlessly. So nobody wants to go through that. She didn't want to go through that. She told Feinstein, "Don't reveal my name." Another Democratic senator basically said, "Yeah, I don't care. We got to go." And so you could be mad at that Democratic senator for betraying Dr. Blasi's confidence, but it wasn't Feinstein, and she didn't keep it and then reveal it. She was forced to reveal it.
So perhaps, I mean, memory is so fuzzy, and it seems like, yes, she had told the therapist. My question on the notes, number one, how do we verify those notes are actually from 2012? How do we know that? And then number two, the notes did not mention Kavanaugh. So is there room to say, yes, perhaps she did suffer some sort of sexual assault, but there is, even in her own notes, if these notes are indeed from 2012, that did not implicate him?
Yeah, so I don't think the therapist is making it up. They would have no incentive to make it up. I mean, unless it's some global conspiracy, but I'm not in the Alex Jones camp. In terms of...
I mean, she is a pink hat wearing, women protesting. She's very, very progressive, but
that's still quite a leap there. Yeah,
she's a Democrat, but that's a long stretch away from. I mean, half the country's Democrats. That doesn't mean they're going to make up unbelievably serious charges against someone to try to ruin their lives. That's a hell of a thing to do, and knowing that it would ruin your life. She's a 51-year-old professor who had a perfectly good life. So,
but she's an activist and a donor.
But does that disqualify her story, though? Because we don't want to get into a space where we're disqualifying somebody's story by looking at how they vote.
Yeah, no. I don't accept that at all. Look, I can't stand the big donors. She was not a big donor. This is not a Koch brothers, Soros kind of thing. She was a donor like any conservative out there might give money to Ted Cruz. They like him. Oh, good luck. But anyway, or you like Beto O'Rourke and you give him money. That she was one of those people, just a regular citizen. So she's a Democrat. You take that into account if you want to. But guys, look, the more we talk about it, the more I keep thinking, why would she make it up? I mean, you're going to go through living hell and say, hey, please don't reveal my identity. And then and one of the Democrats does, to make up an outrageous story about a guy because you don't want him on the Supreme Court. It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. I'm actually trying to give the Kavanaugh as much benefit of the doubt as I can. But the more you think about that story, the more the therapist made it up. She made it up. And by the way, she mentioned Kavanaugh to her husband earlier. So it's very unlikely that she would make it up. But I think that they should do the investigation to see if it could clear Kavanaugh in some way, because I'm trying to be fair. But guys, you got to be fair to her too. Saying that she just out of the blue because she gave $20 at some point to a politician she liked made this outrageous claim up is also fundamentally unfair to her.
Well, look, I agree with you guys. She should be heard. She needs to have her story told. I just think that there's someone else's lives who is at stake too, and he's dedicated his career to public service, and to throw it completely in the trash bin and tear his reputation to shreds by something that is a fuzzy memory from 35 years ago. I mean, it's a balance. But Cenk, what do you think? I mentioned this earlier about the scenario. If there is the ability to unearth a smoking gun to, let's say because the evidence is a little bit, just as hypothetical, evidence is murky at this point, enough Republicans feel in their gut, we're just going to vote for this guy, and he makes it, or maybe a lot of them are saying, I have no problem, clear conscience, this is a smear tactic. However you vote, he ends up getting through, he makes it, and there is some sort of smoking gun. What about then a chance to impeach or remove him because this is proven? I just, beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is not proven to me. So I would feel comfortable voting for him. But later on, if it was proven to me, I would feel comfortable removing someone like that. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, but of course, impeachment is a much, much harder process than confirmation. So it would have to be proven beyond any shadow of a doubt later. It's a much harder standard. And so I get what you're saying. And look, here's how I think about it. I always think, what if the shoe was on the other foot? What if it was a nominee that I really liked, and at the last second, conservatives throw this curveball? My first reaction would probably be to get angry. then I would look into it and see if it's real. And then I would look at the context. And then I would want an investigation to see if they made it up or if it was real, right? But to me, I would want to know before the confirmation, because impeachment is so difficult.
Right, and I don't quite understand why you would rush this process when you could have just done it right the first time and avoided that messiness at the back end altogether. And I guess to kind of like sum things up, I do think it's in everybody's best interest to have that background check, to have this checked as thoroughly as you can, because at the moment, as our conversation reveals, it's very he said, she said, and we want to get away from that. And that's kind of the point of having this extra information, is that so we're not relying so much on, well, he says this, and you say you remember this, because I think that would be incredibly damaging for the country to see that.
Well, I think, yes, we can all agree. We want evidence. We want sunshine. And the Clarence Thomas investigation only took a few days. So if there's evidence, please bring it. But we'll see what happens. Cenk, thanks so much for joining us.
No problem. I appreciate it.